Hi, I'm Anna Denton-Jones from Refreshing Law Limited, and in today's session I'm going to be talking about violence in the workplace. Now, there's been a lot of coverage on the weekend of the Newcastle football player's headbutt, but I've also had a number of calls in recent weeks from employees who've either been the subject of violence, physical violence in work, or have felt threatened, perhaps that some form of physical violence was going to occur. Now, it's worth noting that the Health and Safety Executive's definition of violence in the workplace is quite broad, and it includes not only where there has been some physical harm to somebody, but it also includes the threat of that. So it's worth understanding that it's a broad definition. Now, in terms of the law in this area, we're going to be pulling together a number of different strands. You'll be familiar with your health and safety obligations under statute to provide a safe place of work. In particular, the obligations to risk assess and look at where the risks may be. And obviously, if you do highlight that there are risks, to take some steps to do something about those risks. In addition, we've got the law of negligence coming in here, where somebody may have a claim in negligence if they can show it was reasonably foreseeable that they were going to come to some harm. So again, part of the risk assessment process would be looking at what we can do to mitigate those risks. And from an employment law perspective, my area, we're going to have the statutory duties under the Employment Rights Act kicking in. So an employee who feels threatened, that there is an imminent danger in work, is entitled to walk away, and you can't punish them for having done that. Or if you were to dismiss them, it would be an automatically unfair dismissal. But probably the most important thing from an employment law perspective is the notion of trust and confidence between you and your employee. Obviously, where an employee has come to harm in work, often they can feel that trust and confidence has been broken. So there is a risk not only of quite expensive legal claims in this area and the costs of dealing with it, but we're talking about high sickness absence, morale issues, we're talking about turnover potentially of staff, and negative publicity as well being an issue. So what sorts of things can you do to try and tackle violence in the workplace? Well, there's no one easy solution. It's a number of different measures that you can be thinking about taking. Obviously, we've talked about risk assessment and where you've highlighted risks, looking at what steps can be taken. So sometimes that's environmental factors, in the particular workplace. Sometimes that's training for people so that they understand perhaps how to de-escalate situations and deal with difficult customers, for example. It may be having a lone working policy so that where people are vulnerable and they're working alone, they understand certain steps that they may take to assist them in their safety, or what to do if they feel at all threatened. It may be having an exercise with staff where you actually quantify what the problem is. I can remember hearing many years ago about an employer where the management thought there was absolutely no problem, but when they spoke with the staff down on the ground level, they discovered that actually the staff felt very threatened in the petrol stations that they were working in at night. So they looked at what measures they could take to improve the situation, often those ideas being generated by the staff themselves. You've probably all come across situations where you've seen signs that have been placed in various locations warning members of the public that harassment or violence or even rudeness towards members of staff aren't going to be tolerated. I think I've seen one in the post office. I certainly see it on the toll booths as I come across the Severn Bridge. Those employers are aware that they could be liable for actions towards their staff, so they're trying to take steps to prevent it. Certain employers will also have policies about excluding service users or customers where there have been problems, and having a system for maybe giving warnings, and ultimately exclusion of those customers to ensure that issues don't happen again. It may be a question of training, it may be a question of having some kind of written policy that people feel if they have got issues, they know they can bring it forward. And really it's sending out that message that it's being taken seriously. I think the other key issue for employers is when there has been an incident is how you handle it. Often when I get calls from employees, they're very upset and they feel that the employer's sort of swept the issue under the carpet and isn't investigating it, or hasn't reported it properly, or isn't taking their feelings about the situation seriously enough. So what can we do to support our employees? Do we have counselling in place? Do we investigate incidents? Do we conduct sort of lessons learned from those incidents, and look at educating everybody and talking about it as well? I think people feel very isolated where there has been an incident, they're off sick, and it's almost like the workplace is carried on and nobody really cares about them. What can we do to make sure people don't feel like that and help them back to work swiftly and in a way where they feel supported and safe? If anybody has got any questions, please do email me, adenton@refreshinglawlimited, which is ltd.co.uk. Thank you very much.